Muchísimas gracias for being here. This is a long time coming. I've said this to a few people that I've had on here so far in the 3 years since September 2020, that when I started this, there was a list. When I had this idea, there was a list, right, of how dope my tribe is, like people that I've met along my travels, and you were one of those people. So thank you so much for being here. Let's start it off the way I start off every convo. How are you doing? ¿Cómo estás?
Again, I'm doing good. I'm a little, I have a lot going on, but I'm managing my stress levels fairly well today. So I'm good. I'm good. I'm in good shape. I'm happy to be here in front of you. So
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, man.
Gracias. I'm happy to hear that you're doing well. And, I get so excited to do this because I was just telling my friends, I get to learn so much about my friends. We don't have convos like this, right? We see each other, if we haven't seen each other mad years, but like if we see each other, it's just like whatever's happening. But when I get to do research on my friends, I was like, holy shit. I forgot that they did all this shit, or I didn't know some of the shit that they did. But let's take it back. Where were you born and raised, B?
I was born and raised in Limerick, Ireland. I mean, I'm a '60s child, so '70s was really, my formative years was the '70s, the '80s too, of course, but um, I definitely, I remember the '70s pretty well. So yeah, man.
And then, so at what age did you come over to the States?
I came to the States when I was 24.
Oh, so born and raised, already a young
No, I'm Irish.
adult. You're
I'm Irish.
Irish through and
I'm
through.
Irish.
Hence, I've always
I'm
known
out.
you. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, all of that. Yes. Yes.
So
Been supporting Palestine. Yes, Irish, that kind. Yes.
yeah, hell yeah. Let's talk. We are definitely going to talk about that shit because this is happening right now. This will come out later, but it is October 17th. Definitely want to talk about that. And the connection, right? And the support.
Sure.
That's for sure. So 24, you come to the States. Where do you land?
Actually, I landed in San Francisco. I had come to San Francisco in 1988 as a J1 student visa person. J1 is like a work program for overseas students to allow them to have the American experience. For us, it was like a chance to make some dough so you could get through the following year, because there wasn't much by way of summer work in Ireland in them days, or work period in them days. And it was an experience, and you had a chance to do it. So I had friends in San Francisco, went and worked worked for starving students as a mover in San Francisco in 1988. Spent all my money on hip hop records mostly, and went home, much to everybody's chagrin. And then I applied to grad school basically at Cal Arts, and was accepted, and came back to go to Cal Arts in, I guess that was April of 1990. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And then I I lived in San Francisco for a few months first, until until August, and then August of '90 I moved to LA, and got a little apartment in North Hollywood and started going to Cal Arts basically.
That's crazy. So what do you think, looking back now, and has this ever changed in your mind? What is your roots growing up that, exposed you or got you into hip hop in Ireland during that time?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say really what exactly it was, but I think, I mean, punk rock was a huge. I mean, I was very young now, so like in 1976, let's say I was 10 years old. 1977, I was 11. At my school, I remember very vividly the two big cultural things that hit our school, St. Patrick's National School on the Dublin Road in Limerick, was punk rock. So we had one gang at school that were called the Paddy Punk Rockers, if I remember correctly. And then, and then the other thing, which is really trippy, which I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I'll explain a little bit in a while, but was Roots. Roots came on TV,
Oh, see.
and so the other gang were called the Chicken Georges. And yeah, when you know, I mean, when you think about it, man, I was like
Yeah.
11 years old, man,
Yeah.
and I don't know. There's something weirdly premonitionary, I guess, is what you would say about what the fuck I was about to do for the rest of my life. But yeah, and it was just pure pop culture shit. I mean, we were very ignorant. Um, and I think it was definitely an outside looking thing, you know. As I became more interested in music, and I never knew music to not be political. Like I always,
Mm,
um, you know, it was always there was always a social component. It was never, do you know what I mean? I never really, even though
yeah.
I mean, I remember listening to I don't know, the Carpenters. I guess it was like in our house we had like we didn't have a turntable. We had like a cassette player, and it was like I don't know, that was one of their first cassettes we had was like the Carpenters' greatest hits or whatever. But it's not like you know, I consume music, but as far as music being something that was of me, there was
Right.
always a political component, just because it was punk. Groups
Right.
like the Clash, groups like Stiff Little Fingers, and obviously then there was, you know, the '70s and the '80s in Ireland was um, you know, a particularly difficult period in terms of our history, in terms of what was going on. Mostly what was going on in the north, but it did affect the entire country. So, you know, it felt like Front Street a little bit. You know what I mean? As far as like, I don't know. I remember when I first came to the States. You know, like when I was moving furniture or whatever, people say like, "Oh, you have an interesting accent. Where are you from?" And I would say, "You know, I'm from Ireland or whatever," and they'd be like, "Oh, Ireland. Oh yeah, there's bombs there. Yeah, for sure. How cool."
How cool. How cool there's moms there.
How cool, there's bombs. Yeah. But you know, like yeah, there was a mainland bombing campaign. There was hunger strikes. There was, you know, and it was difficult. You didn't. There was no way to be not aware of it. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Our houses were searched, and there was
Mm,
bomb scares frequently. But then, when you're kids, all that shit kind of is normalized. You know, it's like, oh well, you know, I mean, that's just what's going on. It's not like imagine what it would be like if our houses weren't searched, or imagine what it would be like if there wasn't bomb scares or whatever. But anyway, all of that stuff become part of I guess it made all that stuff was softening up the dough for the big land, which was yeah, I mean, there's a couple of records really that kind of hit. There was a big breakdance scene in Limerick, but I wasn't a part of it. I was a big dude. I played rugby, you know what I mean? I wasn't a dancer, you know what I mean, per se. Still not a dancer. Sure. If you ask any of my friends. Uh, but yeah, so it was like by 84, 85, I would say I was keenly aware and watching everything that was going on as far as the culture, as much as you could in them days, considering we were 6,000 miles away. We weren't London.
right.
Um, we didn't have a black population. There was black people that lived there. I'm making a film right now, and I can say conclusively that there were 4 black people in the city I lived in 1981. This is part of the film I'm making, but I'll explain more later. Um, but it wasn't through those means. It was literally through reading music magazines, picking up foreign radio stations a little bit, and then yeah, just paying attention. And yeah, before I ever came to the States, I mean, I think coming to San Francisco in 1988 at the height of the kind of, you know, crack, AIDS,
Mm,
uh, Iran Contra, um, confirmed for me something that I had felt from being, you know, from ever before I came to the States, which was that hip hop was the most vital and important um, cultural thing to happen to our generation. I stayed in the Mission District in them days, and it was I mean, the mission was a lot different in them days, man. Wowee.
Can imagine.
I preferred it in them days, honestly. I mean, it was, it was definitely, yeah, it was a wild place. A very interesting place, but it was a wild place. It was a lot of different kinds of communities brushing up against each other. And, there were still projects on Dolores. There was still, it was still very, very, very interesting place. And I just remember like there was nothing. There was nothing in cinema. There was nothing in contemporary art that prepared you for that. I don't know, that like, yeah, it was like 5 cans of Jolt. Remember Jolt? You know what I mean? I remember, wow, there's actually a cola that they've added sugar and added caffeine. Oh,
Right.
that's a great idea. It's long before Red Bull. But it was like, it was like a super rush of exuberance, art, danger, poverty. Everything seemed front street. It seemed, like I remember going to London, and there was a part of London called the Front Line. There was a front line in Notting Hill, and it was just like it was a place you could go buy weed 24 hours a day, basically. But you could buy other things too, obviously. But and it was an edge of a Caribbean community at that time, and I feel like Mission and 16th, what I mean, in them days was kind of like it was like a front line. It was like if you went down that way, it was prostitution. If you went down this way, it was like the Castro. If you went down this way, it was like murals and art lofts. And if you went down this way, it was crack being smoked openly. And if you went down, you know what I mean? And it was the first time I ever had sushi. There was a Japanese guy had a tiny sushi place, and he liked country music, and it was crazy. It was country music sushi, and it was it was just like, wow, this is the maddest experience. So then I decided I wanted to come back and do grad school. There was a teacher that I really liked teaching at CalArts at that time, and at least I liked his work. I didn't know what he was like as a teacher, but so I applied, and I got in, and then in the process of accepting school, I got offered. I mean, this is, I don't know, to what extent you believe in
All of it.
synchronicity or whatever.
Yes.
So while I was waiting to find out if I had gotten accepted into CalArts, I got a letter from the American Embassy in Dublin. And I thought, like, I didn't even open it because I thought, like, oh man, these people are so ahead of the game. These Americans are so efficient. But what it was actually was the complete opposite. It was like my mom had applied for a visa. She had applied for all of us. Everyone in Ireland did. There was a visa amnesty in the early 80s. There was some Democratic senators had probably done a dirty deal with Reagan, Tip O'Neill and a bunch of them. And it was called the Donnelly visa. And basically you had to just send your name and a copy of your ID and a return envelope to DC. And everybody in Ireland did it. There was ads in the Sunday newspapers. But that was like 6 years previously. I was 16, now I was 23, and now I got a letter back saying you've been accepted for this visa program. And I just applied to grad school. So, yeah. So that was kind of, well, I guess there he goes.
Sign, symbols, and clues.
Yeah.
This is it.
There was no, I mean, there was, I mean, the prospect of jobs in that era in Ireland was fucking horrific. I mean, it was really bad. And so, yeah, it was like, well, there you go. There's a direction for him. There's some place to go. So I came. And then it was, honestly, it wasn't like I was like, well, here's my chance to become a hip hop photographer. I didn't even know that was a job. You know what I mean? Like I was so naive. You know what I mean? The notion that you could get paid to like do that kind of work was just like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know anybody like that. I didn't even, you know what I'm saying? Like I was just like, wow. And I just thought I would come and I would go to school and I would be, it would make me more qualified to be a teacher when I went home, basically. And so I came to Cal Arts, and then that's kind of where everything started to, yeah, things started to change. The
That's
plan changed.
that's fascinating because I was wondering, for the youngsters that are listening to this, this was
Mhm.
pre internet.
Mhm.
How far or how delayed was hip hop for you guys in Ireland? Like, when did like an estimate, like, oh, something came out here, but then it got to you guys. Like, how long was that timeline?
It wasn't. I mean, that's assuming that there was like some, you know, chain of delivery that we were at the end of or something. That didn't exist. I mean, it was like some things made it, something like random shit, like Schoolie D, for example, who I still to this day, God bless Schoolie D, man. Nobody can say any wrong about Schoolie D for me, because Schoolie was completely independent, put his shit out. Somehow, I'm not sure how, but he caught the ears of people like Mick Jones of The Clash. So when Mick Jones did the first tour with Big Audio Dynamite in like 1986, 1987, he put Schoolie as the opener, and they came to Ireland. And we
Dope.
saw him, and it was just like, you know what I mean? Like, so it'd be like weird, random. It was way more random. It wasn't like a proper delay. Like,
Right.
like somebody dropped a pebble in the Atlantic Ocean in Bronx, and then eventually the ripple. It's not. It wasn't that rational. Um, so there was things I knew about. People would go and bring back tapes, but some of the stories are not that different than what you'd hear in LA. Like um,
From New York, yeah, because we were
from New
getting shit
York.
delayed.
Like
Right, right.
so you have a cousin that's
Always
coming
a
from New York
cousin.
and was bringing mixtapes, and it was the informal. It was much more the informal kind of economy. And I remember, like, even when I left, like I will say I left my school NCAD. I left NCAD in 1988, um, and I came back from that J1 visa. No, sorry, I left in '89, and I came back in '91. And I remember, and there was nobody left in the school that I knew. And I remember going to the kind of cafeteria, and there was a pool table in the cafeteria in them days. And as I was walking by the pool table, there was kids there with the tape deck, and they were playing a Red Alert tape that I had taped off the radio in back in
Shut
'88,
up, shut up.
and they were playing it, and I was, you know what I mean, like that kind of
Yes,
hand to hand tapes.
totally.
It was that, and then somehow, and there was, okay, so on the BBC in them days you had Westwood. Westwood was on there, disgraced ass Westwood, um, was on there, and you could sometimes you could pick up the show. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the first time I remember hearing like Big Daddy Kane. And then London, people go to London. You could find things sometimes in London, but it wasn't, yeah. I think Japan, places like Japan, actually was much more,
Right.
there was already kind of, there was infrastructure in place where there were Japanese folks coming to America to find soul and
Mm,
jazz records and bringing them back. And then it wasn't too much of an extension then for those folks to start to bring hip
hip
hop
hop.
stuff.
Totally.
And then there were tours, obviously. Rocksteady went to England, Rocksteady went to Japan. You know what I mean? But Ireland would shit. I mean,
But that's crazy
we
to know
were
that
not on
Schoolie
that.
D, like, that you guys were exposed to Schoolie D. Like,
And
that's
PE,
live.
PE.
That's
I'll tell you
crazy.
this. I went to see Public Enemy play at McGonagall's in 1988, I believe it was, 1987. I think it was 88. And I'll tell you who was there, standing in the back by herself. And I'll never forget it. I always, man, I'll never let anyone talk shit about this person, because this person is fucking down. She's here with us, Sinead O'Connor. God rest.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah. R.I.P. Wow.
yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
1988, bro. I remember that shit. I remember it vividly. And I'll tell you something. No, I hadn't even been to the States yet properly. And I remember, like, so Flav was clowning and talking about, like, what's that fucking series, Lucky Charms and shit. We were all like, Lucky Charms, what the fuck is that?
Like, are you trying to diss us?
Overall,
Because I
looking
don't even know what it is.
Chuck, I remember he made this. He told the story of how it made him really happy to come to Ireland and to drive down the streets and to look at, it's quite, I don't know if you've seen those kind of Irish storefronts, but they're like, little storefronts, and it'll have the family name of the business,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it won't say even what the business is. It'll just say, Murphy, Ryan, whatever. And to be driving down the streets and to look and to see the name over every business be an Irish name, and to explain that for African Americans there was no place that they could go. And that really struck me. It kind of like I kind of felt like, wow, I never even thought of that. Like, you wouldn't even think.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what does a homeland actually look like? And yeah, and then I saw that, and then I went that summer to San Francisco, and then yeah, it was. I remember, like, another thing from that era that was really struck me was, I remember an artist, Aaron Noble was his name, from the Mission. You know, white dude, very interesting guy, good artist. But he took me and my friend aside, and he was like, I noticed you guys are going up to Tower Records in the Haight to buy your CDs. Even maybe it wasn't them days. I don't even know. I was buying vinyl too.
Right.
But he said, it's you should really think about why don't you buy, why don't you go to Hunter's Point, or why don't you go to Fillmore, and why'd you support those stores, because those are the stores in the community that produces the music.
Right.
And it was another one of those things, like, we're from Ireland. I don't fucking know anything. I was like, fuck yeah. So sure enough, it turned out we ended up, Starving Students was in Hunters Point, and there was a record store in Hunters Point. And yeah, we started to go every day. I'd go get my paycheck, go to the check cashing place, and go 2 or 3 doors over was the record store. And I started buying records. I already had some, but like now I was really able to, go to a store where there was like a whole section and shit. I was
right. And some probably like new shit that Tower Records like would never get, or you know what I mean, like
local shit,
quality.
a lot of local
Yeah.
independent shit. You know what I mean? Like, which again, I was only becoming hip to at that time. Punk rock aesthetic. Obviously, knew about it, but didn't have too much access to that kind of stuff in Limerick. Whereas obviously there was important. And it just the kind of notion of kind of thinking about these types of decisions in an ethical way.
Right.
Is something that's kind of, I remember the first time Shadow telling me, like, yeah, try to avoid the bootlegs. Try, if you can find the original record, buy the original record, because somehow that money will find its way back. But obviously over the years, but like I remember, it was very much part of the thing of, like, pay attention to that stuff. Don't just be a passive consumer. You know what I mean?
Be intentional.
Be intentional with your money. Be intentional with your attention. Be intentional with your, you know what I mean? Who you show up for. That kind of thing. So yeah,
it's crazy. Like, just hearing, like the abridged version of your history. It seems like you're saying, the synchronicity, the signs, symbols, and clues. Since Ireland, since your upbringing, there's been people and things in place to kind of guide you, right? Like homeboy being like, go to Hunter's Point, buy over here, da 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 da. Shadow being da 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 da, and hearing you talk about growing up in Ireland and what the climate was, remembering those times, right? Like history that we knew about what's happening in Ireland. It all makes sense into who you are. Like, of course, B was raised in Ireland during those times and was exposed to this and da 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 da, and now he's done all that. Like, it makes all the sense in the world to me now, and so looking back and doing the research, I saw that, I was looking at dates, and I was like, oh, your book came out in 1993, right? It's not about a salary, rap, race, and resistance in LA. And I was like, I want to ask him, how long were you in LA? So what was it? 3 years, right? Before that came out. And then that came out in 93. But how long did it take you? Like, what was the genesis of that? Like, yo, I'm gonna write this. I'm gonna write. I'm gonna take the photo, shoot the photos for it. Boom, it's
Oh,
LA.
yeah. So 90, I was already thinking about it, like I was already, I never thought I was going to do work about it, but I was very engaged in thinking about, the kind of the micro in terms of, the politics of hip hop, especially the politics of West Coast hip hop was very interesting to me. Obviously, this is a period where like, Cube has split from NWA. There's like, is of, P are at their, first phase of like kind of, really change the game, this kind of thing. So, so all this stuff is going on. In I guess it was February of or May of or maybe May of 91. Um, so I was just this annoying fucking grad student who was called precocious frequently, who was constantly bringing up things like Ice Cube or PE or whatever, in discussions of art or cultural practice that would otherwise have excluded people like that. And I just because I just and it wasn't like I was this, you know, I was a fan for sure, but I was also feeling like I think it's a bit silly that we're not thinking about this because these people are actually doing things that are that are really fucking important and talking about things that are really important. And there was a lot of things in that era where like you first heard it in a hip hop record. It was what I mean? Like, it was like
Right.
Iran Contra for a lot of people. KRS and people like what I'm saying, like they're bringing crack into the community. And then, well, it turns out it's fucking true. They were, but it took the mainstream media and a couple of people getting killed and whatever. But anyways, um, so through a series of discussions with Mike Davis, who was another one of those people who was like kind of, like a dude who showed up at the bridge and was just like, yeah, you should go that direction. He offered me the opportunity to make at first it was just to make a photo. Would you make a photo essay for this French journal I'm editing about Los Angeles? And there was, I said, okay, and it was kind of, it's like one of those things like, seems like a good idea. I'm actually learning to be a photographer finally. I was a landscape photographer actually when I came to the US. So that's what I was. That's mostly what I was doing. And so, yeah, the first people I photographed were the Booyah tribe. The second people I photographed, and then I was photographing at clubs a little bit, and then the second group of people that I photographed was the Watts Prophets. And that was a real kind of. That was really another moment. Meeting Amdi from the Watts Prophets was really another moment. But when I went back to Mike, he said, this is amazing. I was like, I can't believe you've got this much done. And like, because it was like, we needed it in a month. It was like this kind of a thing. And he was like, I can't believe you've made this much inroads or whatever. And I was just like, oh, well, it didn't seem that crazy to me. I was whatever. I was just following my nose really. And he said, what if we turn this into a book? And I was just like, so we turned into a proposal. They accepted it. And then I reached out to a bunch of people that I knew at the time that I thought would be good to write it. And I'll just make the photos. It sounds fine to me. I had some ideas about what I should do. I mean, naive maybe, but I had some ideas. And mostly people were like, you're doing a book about hip hop in LA? You know what I'm saying? What?
Yeah,
Either they were saying, like, what hip hop in LA? Or, you know what I'm saying? That's enough for a book. You know what I mean? People didn't really, but what they didn't know was that I had also, I had met the Watts Prophets, which was really important. And I had met Horace Tapscott and I had met Billy Higgins, but I'd also met the Freestyle Fellowship. And I walked straight into the fucking good life.
Wow.
And yeah. And I of course, there's no, I mean, did you ever go there? Did you ever go to the good life?
No, I got here after I got here
You went to
after the
Blow.
fact.
You went to probably Project Blow then.
Yeah.
I mean, you went to the good life. I mean, honestly, man, like, I mean, it was like a Thursday night from 8 to 10 in a health food shop that sat maybe 40 people. You know what I'm saying? And then okay, like the sessions would really be in the parking lot afterwards, of course. But like, I mean, there was nothing going like, this is the future of music.
No, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it was just like, they didn't even have the mic was terrible, the sound was terrible, the the beats were played off cassette. You know what I'm saying? But much, but as much as we laugh and as much as we, as we understand what you realize when you really start to look, you realize, well, shit, that's how hip hop started, and shit,
right,
that's how samba started, and that's how cumbia started. You know what I'm
right,
saying? Like, I mean, things start in humble places. They don't start in boardrooms under nice fluorescent lit rooms with good
right.
sound systems. They don't. And I was naive. You know what I mean? I didn't have anything in my experience to tell me like, yo, you just walked into something. But I knew loads of people that would tell, oh, you should, you really got to check this out, man. This is some special shit. And of course, people, it was like, and it wasn't even that far out the way. It was like, like Exposition and La Brea or Exposition and Crenshaw or whatever. And like, but make the effort, show up, bring your camera, take some photos, make friends, talk to people, try to understand what's happening, and yeah, and then through a kind of fortuitous set of things, meeting Raymond Roker, who ran Herb magazine and was just
Shout
on
out
issue
Raymond,
number
right?
2, I think, at the time. Meeting the woman who was the head of publicity at Priority at the time, whose name has gone out of my head right now. She'll be mad at me, but um, and just being very lucky, really, um, in terms of like, staying focused and taking things seriously. That was other things. Like
Mm,
I never, ever, 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 ever took any of that stuff for granted. I always understood that what I was seeing, I was super privileged,
I was gonna say, yeah,
super grateful to be even in the room, dude. It was like, but as far as white people, man, it was me, Cut, and you'd see DJP from time to time. That was it. I didn't see
yeah.
nobody else.
I was wondering, how did you get access to Booyah Tribe, and how was that at that time? That was like,
Booyah was like a couple of cats out of the group used to do security at clubs in Hollywood. And I remember asking them, like, yo, you set me up to do photos. I'm doing this thing, blah, blah, blah.
mm,
In them days, it was, there was no managers, there was no publicists,
straight to the, yeah,
it was just straight to
straight
either
access.
yeah, the Godfather is looking for you. You know what I mean? Oh, okay. Yeah. So I remember they were it was a house in Echo Park, actually, where I photographed them. And the photos aren't even great. I mean, you know what I mean? I was still figuring it out. But it was just, I mean, it was an important moment, and there wasn't too many other people that were really taking it that seriously.
Right.
So, yeah, it was, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I've lived this sort of blessed life where it's like, I've just been fortunate enough to, you know, um, find my way into places that are very interesting at moments that are interesting, and
Yeah, and it's not like you're a small dude either. Like you're
no,
tall. Like you can't sneak into places. So
no,
you have to be granted access, and you've been
yes,
granted access to
for
a grip
sure,
of. I mean, I was telling some friends, who I was going to have a convo with, and one, of course, knew who you were, and the other one was like, "Who's that?" And I was like, "How would I describe him?" And I was like, "A hip hop activist historian." Like,
maybe,
like that's how I see you. That's how I saw you when I first met you. And if I remember correctly, I don't know if you remember when you first met me, but I believe it was during one of the Mumia 911 events.
for
I
sure,
think Frank Sosa brought me in, and
yeah,
you were doing those photos where it was in
yeah,
the V
yeah,
and stuff. And I think that's where I met you. So and so that was the beginning of my introduction to you, and seeing you from that point into where we are now. It just, that's how I see you. Like, oh, he's here to document, not only document, but also be a part of the culture,
yeah,
and and before I forget, I just want to say super grateful for you, sir. Super grateful for
Oh,
you.
thank you.
So, doing the
Well, the
research.
first person to ever say that about me, and I don't know whether it was an article or something, but I remember it was in the '90s, and somebody asked Raka about me, and Raka said, um, whatever it is that he decides he wants to, or whoever it is he decides he wants to, or whatever he decides he wants to work with, um, the project will be better by virtue of his presence. And I was
Facts.
just like, wow, that's a really damn Raka. So I remember I called him up. I was like, yo, thank you.
That's
That's a
real.
very, very, very nice thing to say about somebody, actually. And it made me, I felt happy for this. And I guess that's it, because I actually, as far as, am I the best photographer? I don't think so. Am I the best filmmaker? I don't think so. But then I do occupy a lane where it's like, there are certain things that I bring to the table that in such a way that not everybody else is able to do or whatever. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
And you
my,
know what I think it is? Because you're granted access, I think you know this scene. You're not going to get in just because you're white. Like, especially if you're white, people really have to see you, really have to feel your intention. And I think, they say whenever you create, if you're making salsa, if you're angry, it's in the salsa, right? Like
oh, for sure.
whatever you're doing it. And photography as well, whatever you're doing creatively, there's a love and respect that
Yeah.
shines through your work because you've been given this access, because you are a fan of it, because you respect it. And I think that all those things combined, you can't redo that. Like, someone could be a better photographer technically, but there's a language, a visual language, a communication of love and respect. And I think that differentiates your work and what Coleman does and stuff from other photographers. Like, oh yeah, they took a photo of Biggie, of MF Doom, or whatever. But there's another level. There's like extra levels, another frequency that I think your work communicates. It's gorgeous too, though. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's gorgeous too. But I wanted to ask, you've taken photos of some of the most iconic classic albums. You were director of photography for films, director yourself. One of my favorites, Keepintime. You were photo editor of Wax Poetics, Rap Page. I mean, like, so much fucking iconic shit. Like, nothing was like, no half stepping anywhere. But now, if you meet somebody and they say, "Oh, what do you do?" What is your answer? How do you answer that shit?
I'm usually just like, yo, I'm a photographer.
Just keep it like photographer, and then that's it.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm personally, like, I'm like when it started to land weird for me when the culture started to turn into like everybody was the best. You know what I mean? I have to tell, like, I'm one of those people, like, if I have to tell you, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the best. There's a pretty fucking high likelihood that I'm not.
Not the
You know what I'm
best.
saying?
Right.
And so I'm all about like, let me just, you know what I mean? We could just meet, and you know what I mean? I want to meet you, you know what I mean? It might not be the first thing you're going to tell me that you have this amazing podcast, blah, 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 great family, blah, blah, blah. We're just going to meet each other, and I like to keep it like
Right.
that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm way more on the low key. So I generally just, oh yeah, I'm a photographer. Or if somebody is talking about like, filmmaking or something, I'll be like, oh yeah, I make films, like, yeah, I make films too. But I'm not here like, yeah, I say, yeah, Exit Through the Gift Shop was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, totally. That's whack. That's totally, yeah.
Boo boo. You know what I mean? No, I don't do that shit. So yeah, so I generally just keep it low key. Or sometimes I say, yeah, actually I am a professor. I am a tenured professor of photography and filmmaking, which I
Yeah,
am. You
which
know what
you
I'm saying?
are.
So yeah. So yeah, I keep it low
So,
key.
Nice. That's interesting because I always wondered what you would say. So let's talk about art as form of, protest, art as form of resistance, music. How, you grew up in that shit. Uh,
Sure. I
have
did.
we?
I also grew up under the shadow of some of the worst examples of that shit too. You know what I'm saying? Um,
So how important is that? And do you feel this generation of any genre of music, have we lost it? Where do you think we're
no,
at?
no, I don't see. I believe these things are like a pendulum. You know, it's a pendulum basically, and we're swinging between body and mind. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, definitely, we've been going through a body moment, pretty hardcore. You know, people experimenting with drugs, people
Right.
experimenting with being in their bodies, people experimenting with certain kinds of movement. Dance has become really, really important, an important part of the culture again in a way that it hasn't been for a long time.
Facts.
Um, you know, through socials and whatnot. But that don't. There's no we've left the room or something. Like, I don't believe that. There's also some fucking really important um, stuff being done. Um, I often think also that, like, I think if if you limit your version of hip hop to um, what's happening within the 48, or shall we say 50 uh, states, you're making a big mistake now.
Right.
And some of the most important political activist work is happening outside the United States, actually. You know what I mean? I'm talking about indigenous communities. I'm talking
Right.
about in the Middle East. I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking one of my favorites, the Chilean, somebody you should have definitely on this podcast is Anna Tu.
Hell yeah, would love that.
Oh man, that's my love, Anna. She came to visit me in Ireland during the summer. It was
Ugh.
I laughed so much. My I haven't actually had pains in my cheeks in a long time, and it's like 3 days of insanity. She's funny as hell. But basically, no, I would say the other thing, I think it's important for us, especially on the left. And I know in a week like this, it's just fucking appallingly difficult. But it is important to keep a disposition of optimism, dude. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
I think, yes, we are in a profoundly dark moment, unequivocally. Um, but there's never a day when I don't see signs that things are, are that things are moving and things are changing and there are things that are getting better too. I think people are, reaching certain levels of realization, even in regards to what's happening in the Middle East. I think people that I've never seen before, um,
Yeah.
are coming to realizations about what's happening in Palestine.
Yeah.
And I have to hope that, we will reach a point there. The arc, what does MLK say? The arc of justice will swing towards us. It has to.
It
It
has
has
to.
to. There's no other way. History
Yeah.
doesn't. This will be fixed, and it will be fixed in a way that is just for them. And it has to. And as soon as everybody realizes that, and as soon as everybody realizes that you do have to sit down with these people, I don't care. I don't care. You know what I mean? They sat down with us. They said they'd never sit down with us, and they did. They were sitting down with us the whole time. They said they weren't. You know what I'm saying? That's why we. That's why there's Irish people feel so strongly for Palestinians. Is because in the '80s we were the PLO in the '80s. You know what I mean? Or they were us. We were the scourge. We were the fucking Hamas of our time. We were bombing train stations. We were doing despicable acts. And that's what happens. Despicable acts will have to happen
Right.
before you get the foot off your neck. That's just a look.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not. I'm just saying. These are realities, dude. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. I'm
Yes.
not. I'm not out here. You know what I'm saying? You can't. You can't be out here um, justifying. You know what I mean?
No.
Death of children.
No.
There's no reason you should be asked to. because we aren't asking the United States or these people who have done the most despicable acts. You know what I'm saying? Like how are you able to make a film, the biggest grossing film last year? You know what I'm saying? Starring an Irish cat too, a cat that I have a lot of respect for. You know what I'm saying? Is about the man that invented the atomic bomb, and there's no place in that story for Japanese people. There's nowhere for them. Somehow we're able to talk about that, without really thinking through what we've done, the damage that we've done, and we somehow have some moral authority. We don't have moral authority over anything. When Farrakhan say that shit to Bill Moyers, bro, like I was just like, man, that's it. That's
Right.
it. Let he who has, you know what I'm saying, not sinned throw the first stone. You have no, and they still put their foot in. They got to put their foot in every fucking thing that happens. And this whole situation in the Middle East this was wrong from the first day, man. And the funny thing is, when you look into the history of it, man, and this is the part that I'm learning too. You know this because we all come out from under the British Empire, but the same dude that was negotiating the treaty in Ireland is the same dude who was then going off drawing the borders in Palestine. You know what I'm saying? It's the same people.
Same people. Right.
And
right.
somehow we've managed to delude ourselves into this kind of, weirdly and what does Gil Scott Heron call it? The great American anemia and amnesia. But it's this kind of the amnesia express. That's what he calls it. The amnesia. Everything's in front of us. We're moving forward. We just forget what the fuck happened yesterday. It's like, bro, like I'm a Marxist, man. Like, stop this already. Like, these things have history. It's not that far back.
No.
And whether it's slavery or whether it's the treatment of Palestinians and the creation of the state of Israel, all these things need to be taken into account. And in its own small, weird way, hip hop has a part to play.
Yeah.
Hip hop speaks for people. You know what I mean? Finding new ways to tell these truths is part of the deal. It's part of the responsibility. And it doesn't matter. Like, we all carry it somehow,
Right.
And so for me, that's it. It's one foot in front of the other. I don't know any other way to do it, really. You know what I mean? It's always the starter for me is like, well, what can I add? Is there something I'm able to add a little bit? And that's Horace Tapscott, Alan Sekula, Mike Davis, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all those are my, Ben Caldwell, you know what I'm saying? Kamal Daoud, like, you know what I'm saying? Those people are Chris Mark or Agnes Varda. Like, those are the lessons. And it's I mean, people always say to me, like, it sounds like you like you always knew what you wanted to do. And it's like, actually, you're making it sound like it was some kind of like, like somebody tapped me on the side of the head, and I was just like, okay, here we go. And that's not really the way it works. But at a certain point, you start to realize, like, yeah, you're not gonna know Mochila in one photo. You're not gonna know Mochila in one film. You're not gonna. I can't make my argument in one film. You might look at me and be like, "Fuck that guy," and it's a fair enough response, actually. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, fuck him. But over time, you're gonna be like, actually, nah. I think I'm beginning to understand a little bit of what they trying to do. But I can't. It's like Joseph Campbell says, like, the highest level of knowledge are the things it's difficult to explain in words, and it's not something.
True.
You got to see the work.
You got to see the work.
Not something I can really explain. Is something you have to, engage with the work, see what we've been doing for the past 20 plus years,
a long time,
and hopefully if we've done our work properly, it'll emerge. You will begin to understand. So now I've not answered your question.
No, you have. This is the convo. I love this. This is the type of stuff. I love all this shit.
Well, anyway.
I love all this shit.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. And I think that's what also gives me hope in this moment, that there's people that maybe I've just met or I've known, maybe a surface a little bit deeper, but not too deep, that I see them being awakened by the truth. And posting on social media things that I never thought that they would say shit about what's happening right now, and not just not just some banner up, free Palestine, but like fucking paragraphs of like, this fucking shit ain't right. I don't give a fuck who I lost. I'm glad I don't have sponsors, like people that I'm just like, this is the shit that I'm talking about. This is the type of work. This is the realization. This is the awakening. This is the work. This is what we need, so that we all say, fuck this shit. We're not free until Palestine's free, until everyone's free. Like, and what's the realization? And what's crazy is I'm also seeing people that I would never think even talk about this shit also going to next level and being like, and the US is complicit, and I was just like, this is amazing. This is, I never thought, and here we are. So I'm hopeful. We'll,
I mean, the real test is, and I mean, yeah. If you see the breakdown in numbers, I think I was in the New York Times or the Guardian did it. It's really very little difference between the Democrats and the Republicans in terms of AIPAC or the Israel lobby. But
right.
that needs to change. I was even surprised AOC the other day. AOC kind of shocked me the other day and said some shit that I was like, did you really need to fucking say that? But that's the mainstream that needs to change. I mean, that's the area where this is an entirely different argument if you take away the 5 billion or whatever it is that they're giving Israel every year. If that goes on the table and becomes negotiable, and it becomes something that's like, nah, actually, then this state no longer looks like the fucking bully that it actually has become. And the other thing for me, honestly, it never ceases to, I mean, I am impressed by the courage of many fucking Jewish people to stand up against this.
Right.
And that never, that's a constant. I would just say that it's a constant. And in our community, even, what I'm saying, there are folks that I admire that. I take that shit seriously. I really do. Because I know that shit ain't fucking easy.
No. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, a funny story. I mean, and I know you'll appreciate this, is so in maybe 2007 or 2008, we were approached. We met these guys, and they said they were Jordanian guys, and they said they were trying to be the mochila of the Middle East, right? And we were like, oh, word, okay, that's dope. Like, figure out the money better than we did. But so then they said, we'd love to to host you guys, to bring you guys over there. And I remember EC was just like, dude, what do you really know about Jordan? I was like, well, and I told him my little few facts or whatever. And so we go there, have this exhibit. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience in general. And we've become friends with all these cats. But we were there. We're sitting at this, it was me and Eric DJing, and then there was these MCs, one MC from Canada and two MCs that were one Palestinian, one Syrian guy. They were both from Southern California, and they were performing there at the same time. So afterwards, we all end up hanging out, have a smoke, the usual, whatever, listen to records, talk shit. And so somebody asked, like, the three dudes where they had met each other for the first time. And they said that it was this Free Palestine event. And it was, yeah, man, it was in a bookstore. And it was, I think it was in Echo Park.
Shut up.
And I was like, yo, not only is like, was I there? I was the DJ. They were like, you were the DJ. I was like, bro, this is too crazy.
Shut
we're like
up.
All the way in Jordan talking
Shut
about
up.
Frank, man. And, I know, man, I'm sending love to Frank, because Frank is a very sensitive man and a tough dude by any measure,
right?
But also a very sensitive guy. And this has been a hard week for old Frank, bro. This is something that he went there. Remember Remember, he went there and he couldn't go in. They sent him back. The Israelis sent him back. They fucking knew. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I mean, I always say, like, small acts of solidarity
Mm-hmm.
is what builds the real bridges. You know, like, how did you end up working with Banksy? I ended up working with Banksy because I stood up against, we stood up against police brutality and to free Mumia. And
Right.
that gave us a reason to talk to Banksy. And when he saw that's what we were doing, he took us seriously. And then we became friends. And you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's not like we ever do it for transactional reasons, but
No.
so much of the time, people that I take seriously in my life, people that I am in contact with, it's through ideas, it's through causes, it's through actually standing up and saying difficult things often that we develop relationships, So
Right.
yeah, so I know you. You know what I mean?
That's how I know you. And when Jasper was on here, we were talking about, I met him because he requested to come to Art Speaks at the El Rey, and we've been friends ever since. And I just saw him 2 weeks ago. You know, Academy Award winner. He hasn't changed, and he was like, "I'm spending time with you because I want to spend time with you." And we were talking about we've grown. All of us have grown in this industry, in this scene, and gone so many different places, right? Because of the
Yeah.
nonlinear career path. And now we're in different places of power in different ways, and we're
Mhm.
still nothing's changed. We're still about, small acts of solidarity, being advocates for our communities in so many different ways. And I love seeing that. Um, it's just like, okay, we met, hip hop brought us together. Being activists at a time brought us together. We're still here. We're still fighting a good fight and all that good stuff. But it's crazy. And also, Frank is he's kind of like the glue and the nucleus for a lot of
Yes.
stuff, for
A lot of
sure.
stuff. A lot
A
of
lot
stuff.
of stuff. Shout out to Frank. Okay, so let's get into. Are you cool on time? Because I've already taken an hour of your time. Okay, let's get into the questions and comments from the audience. First question. This is from the Supernatural Bear, Rocka and I's amazing son who just turned 11. He said, "Please ask Mr. B how he got into photography and why."
So, to be honest with you, I didn't. I went to. I had a friend growing up who was a photographer, and as a result, like in my teenage years, I don't know that we. I don't think we didn't even have a camera in my house, man. I drawing, that was it for me. Here's a pencil and a bit of paper. Shut up. You know what I mean? So, um, but in art school, then a little bit later, I was interested in ideas, and the thing about photography that interested me was that you could make images really quickly. You could refer to things really quickly.
Mm,
Um, it was like a shorthand way to, it would take me a long minute to draw something where it was like click.
yeah.
And so at first it was just photographing other things, even sometimes other photographs, magazines, newspapers. That's how I started. Um, and then it was through the process of eventually starting to fall in love with the actual medium itself and start to begin to really take it seriously. But that didn't really happen until I came to California, honestly.
Mm,
Um, I, I was a landscape photographer, but I was really somebody interested in ideas and telling stories. And then photography just kind of found me a little bit, you know.
mm.
So yeah.
Love that. Okay, next one. Ask him when the Mattress coffee book is coming out. And that's by
That's somebody who knows me.
Assad. That's
Sad.
Assad from, founder of Footlong Development. Bringing
Sad.
a lot of the quality shit like Wonderful and Soul Slam and all
Oh
that shit
man,
to,
you know
to
you gotta
LA.
love Assad, man.
Of
Assad, another
course.
solid, another glue, another
Yes.
node in the rhizomatic world we live in. Um, Basically, it's coming. I mean, it's actually coming. He's gonna laugh his ass off, but yes, it's laid out. It's not finished. There is some work to be done, but yes, there will be in the next year hopefully. I'm working on this Supremes film right now, so that's
Ooh.
taking up a lot of my time. But this my American landscape book, I know it's mattresses, B, but yes, my American landscape book will be
Oh, so
yeah.
it's literally mattresses. It's like,
Oh yeah, I've been photographing discarded mattresses since the 90s, basically. And I go through phases of it. I go through super productive phases. And people call me all the time. People photograph them on their phones and send them to me and shit. But yeah, I just had this weird. I don't know. Like by now, I think my students think it's like some fucking weird fetish. But it was really me just being having a new camera that wasn't. It wasn't a reflex camera. It was like a camera where it was a reflex camera. So you didn't look through the lens. You
ah,
looked through the viewfinder,
let's see.
and it didn't. You weren't. So there was a little bit of parallax. So to figure out the camera, I was like, I gotta find something to shoot that I can shoot every day. And I tell my students this, like, if you want to learn how to be a photographer, find something you can shoot every day and just do it. And just fucking do it. Don't even think about it. Just fucking do it. And this was the mattresses. And then they pop up from time to time, and there's definitely been records. It was a series of Irish uh, records of the beat scene in LA that came out about 10 years ago, and all the covers were the mattress photos. Like everybody was on there actually. Like Ross G, Kuma, Eric. Um, who else had record? Who else had songs on there? Daedalus, Lotus, I think was on there. Shafiq had one. But anyways, yeah, there were a series of 10 inches, and all the photos were mattress photos. But yeah, it's by now it's kind of. But I also think I know Assad's always counting me for that shit. So
So speaking
whatever,
of
Assad.
so speaking of your students, I thought this would be, I don't know if you've seen any of these, but it says uh he cares about his students and is really funny, gives good feedback, conducts crit in a way that leaves none feeling awful about themselves. Classes are 3 hours, but his jokes and humor make time pass fast. Have you read it? Have you heard of any of these? These are
No.
student reviews of your class.
Oh,
Uh
you went on Rate My Professor?
yes.
Oh, you're terrible. Oh, you're terrible.
I was like, let me see what these kids are talking about. Um,
Okay.
some
No, whoever wrote that, like they wrote like so. I don't know if you know how this works for us, but like when you teach at the end of every quarter, the students get an email that's a pretty in depth series of questions they have to answer about basically rating my performance as a professor. Was the class what you expected? Did you did you learn anything? Would you recommend it to your friends? What was he like? Was he prepared? Was he not prepared? And of course, this is fucking kind of challenging shit. You know what I mean? Because
hell
like
yeah,
you have weeks when you're. I mean, I have weeks when I'm on, but I also have like, especially in the middle of the quarter, there'll be a few weeks where it's like, yo,
a little rough.
I don't want to be here. Kind of weeks.
Totally.
Usually that's when I lean into the films. You know what I mean? I always have a couple of good films up my sleeve. Like I know this will rock their shit a little bit. That's enough. But somebody that's worded very like one of the reviews I got last quarter. That's
Oh
very
really?
sweet. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think if you want to teach in an art school, you have to be able to do critique well,
Right.
and I think you have to be honest, and you
Mm,
have to have some integrity with your students, and you have to be your authentic self somehow. Like
right.
I remember when I first started teaching, that was the best advice I got actually. And it was a guy from the music school. His name is Kamau Kenyatta. He's amazing, amazing teacher. But he said there's no substitute for authenticity. And I was just
Right.
like, it just
That's
made me feel free to like just be you, dude. It's
yeah.
okay. And so I cuss and I tell jokes and I'm myself. And if I want to talk about Palestine for 10 minutes, I probably will. Or if I want to talk about, what I'm saying, whatever,
And
somebody
that's how I
died.
knew. B, that's how I knew you haven't changed, because I was like, who wrote some of the lower scores? And they were like, sometimes he goes off on tangents about his politics. I was like, oh, hasn't
Mhm.
changed,
Oh,
hasn't
no. And I
changed.
mean, I'm in San Diego. So, what I'm saying? When I teach some of them big general ed classes, um, oh, yeah, they find
Yeah.
me. I've
So
had people say, like, I thought he's supposed to be European. Oh, word. I was like, yeah,
Hilarious.
the sweat.
Okay. So the next question, it says, who is the most fascinating musician and or person you met in your travels? Okay, that's a lot of travel, so maybe top 5 if you have to. And this is by the amazing previous Word to Your Mama guest, DJ Mona Lisa Murray.
Oh, Mona. God, I love Mona Lisa, dude. Is there? Anyways, Mona Lisa posted something this morning. I laughed my ass off. Anyways,
I'll have to check it
Mona
out.
is amazing, amazing person that I'm always happy to see. That's a very difficult question. Um, I think I'm Wayne Shorter. I only met him very briefly. Wayne Shorter has one of the most extraordinary minds I think I've ever come across. Banksy is one of the most extraordinary people. I'm thinking of people that really rocked my shit, like to the point where I was
Right.
like, I spent a while with them, but I was just like, holy, whoa, whoa, whoa. Badu, man. Badu is really, that's a kind of difficult one in the sense that like it's very difficult to put your finger precisely on what it is about Erica that is so mind warping. But I remember the first time I photographed Shabba Ranks.
Ooh.
And I remember Shabba Ranks come in the room, and it was the first time I ever seen somebody where it was like the entire room changed when they came in. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's okay with somebody come in and like the first person they meet suddenly lights up when they start talking to them or something. But this is before they talk to anybody.
It was
The
like a
entire
vibe.
room changed, the vibe changed. Badu has that. Badu carried that with her in a way that's, and we're friends. You know, I mean, I rate old E, man. She's an important person. That's hard, dude. I mean, there's people that I met that I was just like so profound. Like, you know, I met Shuggy Otis. I met John Lee Hooker. I met Biggie. You know what I mean? I've met
Yeah.
people that I'm just like, whoa, fuck. You know what I mean? But I'm trying to talk to people that are like really a very special kind of intelligence. Yeah, that's a hard question, dude.
But
I
you
don't know.
named some good ones. That's fascinating. That's
Yeah.
definitely fascinating. Next question. What is your favorite Dilated Peoples album cover and why? And that is by your friend of mine, Rocket Taylor, 1/3 of Dilated Peoples.
Good one, dude. I think, yeah, I think I would have to say okay, so like, here's the thing. I think my favorite photo of Dilated Peoples was made for the second record, the one we did at which is called, why am I spacing on the name? We made it at LAX. Uh,
Mm.
but as far as the actual cover itself,
Say.
the platform is kind of
Mm.
still, yeah, just one of those ones. But I mean, I photographed them when they weren't even Dilated Peoples, dude.
When
And
they were
actually,
flatliners?
yes, even if I don't even know if they were flatline. Yeah, were they turnstiles? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
you know, it
yeah,
was in that
yeah,
moment
yeah.
where they were like trying
Right.
to figure it out, and you know, and I mean, I know rock. How long do I know these guys? Like, I
How
don't
did you
even.
meet them? Who did you meet first? And where was that?
So I met them both, I think, at the same time at the old hip hop shop on Melrose in like right when this was all starting, like 1991.
Wow.
Maybe the beginning of 1992, and they were both part of Rocksteady. And I'm not even sure that they had even started to, you know what I'm saying,
Wow.
mess with each other yet. And then, and I know that for sure because I have photos of it. But then, it wasn't, I mean, like I met a bunch of people at the same time. So, I didn't know that's who they were or whatever. So, I met Rhett then as well at the same time. But then I remember in the sort of mid 90s, um, Jessica Clark, who was the manager of Cypress Hill at the time,
Mm.
or who was working for Happy Walters, who was the manager of Cypress Hill at the time, had a place in Venice. She used to live in Venice, and I remember going over there a few times to hang out or whatever, and she telling me about this her neighbor, Baby Mike. And then for a good few years, I knew Baby Mike as Baby Mike, and it was Mike. It was Ev. You know what I mean? So
Hilarious.
yeah, so I feel like I've and Rock was always one of them dudes. And then Rock was always the cat that was, you know what I'm saying? I always felt like Rock was the conscious one. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? He was
Yeah.
always the one that was engaged and, so that was always, you know, and it's, it was just like a big group of friends, you know what I mean? There was like the Soul Sides dudes and the Jurassic dudes and then Dilated and them. And even Al like was always there on the perimeters, but like I didn't really, I would say I
Yeah.
never really, really, really hung out with Al. But if I ever see him, it's always like we
It's
old
love.
friends, yeah.
Yeah.
But so then to have the opportunity to work with them, especially in that period, like yeah, that was very special. And Brent, Brent is a
Brent Rollins.
fucking amazing guy. Like, and all those album covers I've done with him, you know what I mean? Like, and but it like I've been trying to get Eric to understand, like, because he's always like, whenever you show up, the edits just get better. Like, you didn't touch the computer. It's like, dude, even if I'm just in the room, if I say nothing, you're gonna see shit differently.
Right.
And I think that and that's the kind of measure of a good creative relationship, I think. And me and Brent,
Same.
did so many things over the years, from rap pages to all those record covers, that it was just like, he just had a different set of eyes from my photos than I did. And so that's how it would be. Sometimes he had this really strong idea that he wanted, and then I see it and I'm just like, and then, you know what I'm saying? But those were very special times. I remember that stuff very fondly. And then, working with Babs afterwards, and even seeing Mike become a photographer, dude, it's just
I
crazy.
know.
You know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
It's
And a
like
good one.
crazy.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. And it's funny that you know what you said about how Coleman, shout out to Coleman, how he's just like, you come in, it's because like you guys respect each other, so you challenge each other. It's like, game recognized game, and what do they say, steel sharp, whatever, like,
steel, sharp and steel.
yeah, it's like you're around each other, and so as a creative, that's what I do, that's what Rocket does, and we've evolved after so many years. But I feel so fortunate that he's here. He's like, whatever project I do, I always show it to him, right?
Of course,
And I hate, because of the dynamic, because we're married too, is there's like an extra level. And I hate when he says something and I'm not seeing it, because I think my shit is so fucking dope, right? And I'm not seeing it at the time. And he says it, and I was like, he's saying it just to spite me. And then the moment of realization that that motherfucker was right kills me sometimes.
gotta turn the ego down a little bit.
Totally. So yeah,
Well,
I
that's
get
art
that
school. I
relationship.
mean, what I would say is one of the things that art school, especially in Ireland, which was very brutal, but that was one of the things that they really, they really leaned into, was that you just stop being precious about your shit.
Yeah.
Don't, just let it go, let it go. If
Right.
trust the other person that he ain't gonna tell you something. You know what I mean? He ain't gonna. Now, okay, there's gonna be times when, well, this is the deal. You at least gotta try it my way,
Yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah,
then A
yeah.
B it, and then be
ABA.
honest.
Right.
And then if it's, man, I love it when someone shows me some shit that I didn't see. I mean, I was just fucking great. Thank you for catching me. That's
Exactly.
great.
That's what
You
it
know what
ends
I'm
up
saying?
being. But
And
sometimes I was like, God damn it,
I,
but
I see you gritting your teeth. I know how you are. But
like that
I mean,
motherfucker's
it is in
right.
the end. We are really only. We are really only as a measure. We're only as good as the people we carry around us, bro. Like that's it.
Facts.
You
That's
know what I
why I
mean?
only want quality motherfuckers around me. Real motherfuckers, quality motherfuckers and stuff, because yeah, it's you want to know me? Look at the people I'm around.
No,
You
that's what I'm
know?
saying.
My
That's what I'm
my
saying.
tribe is dope. Okay, final question before we go into this other round. If you have time, what are you currently, this is for me, what are you currently nerding out on as far as like, could be anything, movies, music? Like, I'm interested, like, what is B listening to that you're like heavy rotation? It could be old, new. What is that right now for you?
Well, I blew out a few engines there over the summer on this whole Supremes thing. So that's what I've been. I haven't made a feature in, yeah, it's been 10 years. I mean, I've done it for other people, but as far
Right.
as something just completely out of my brain or whatever, like I haven't done that in 10 years, since Timeless. Is that true? Yeah,
Wow.
since Timeless. So that's what I've been doing really is, um, crazy enough, reading and consuming everything to do with 1981 in Ireland. that's, what
Wow.
I've, that's what I've been doing for the past 12 months, pretty much. Um, as far as music, I don't know. Like I think if you went through uh, my streaming business, you'll find, I don't know. In the past sort of 12 months, I've gone through phases of listening to George Duke, of listening to just Japanese jazz, of listening to Irish rap, of which the city I'm from is fucking killing everybody right now, as far as I'm
I'm gonna just
concerned.
check that out.
Yeah, there's somebody you should definitely check out who I've been working with and who's in this film, and I've made a film with as well. There's a young MC from Limerick uh, called Denise Chyla,
Okay.
and she's something else, man. She's some special shit. I was happy during the summer she got a chance to meet Anna,
Oh, nice.
because I was a real, I was just happy to just sit back and fold my arms and watch him just laughing and be like, oh, thank God. See, it's not so bad. But you know, yeah, I mean, that's it. When I go down the rabbit hole, I go pretty hard, dude. So like, if
I
you look at
bet.
all the books, you look at my Amazon fucking madness over the past 12 months, yeah, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about what it was like for me aged 15.
Wow.
This film is about the Supremes. The Supremes, Mary Wilson basically was the other two Supremes, original Supremes anyway. Florence had died, Florence Ballard had died, and Diana Ross had obviously moved on. Um, I guess by that point, Diana Ross was about to start working with Nile Rodgers and have this whole new career. But Mary Wilson was still hanging on to the name, fighting with Berry Gordy, and was trying to tour. And they found their way to Ireland. I don't know why. They were stuck, and in Ireland they were robbed in Limerick, in my hometown, and it's a it's a kind of a mad story. But I Kamau Kenyatta, this guy who teaches in the music school here at UCSD, when I first came down here, he asked to see me, and I went to see him. He was looking to collaborate with me to have me do photos, for some projects he was working on or whatever. And we started talking, and he was like, I see you're from Ireland, like what city are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Limerick. And his face changed, and he said, I was robbed there once. And so it turns out that he was the piano player
Shut up.
in the group, and he kept a photo diary. So, that's when I was like, oh man, I've been thinking for a long time about making a film about Ireland in the 80s, because obviously that's where I grew up. And then there's a lot of things that I felt like I needed to revisit that I could help actually now kind of unpack.
Right.
And so this was like, here's an opportunity to,
And how
yeah.
crazy. Again, another moment.
But
Someone was like,
it's like a frequency. Like you have to
yeah,
pay attention,
right,
listen very carefully to be what's being offered to you, because the universe is showing you, like, at every moment, it's telling you, like, yo, that's where you should be going. It's up to you to listen. Do you know what I mean?
right.
I do believe that. So, yeah. But anyways, yeah. So that's what I've been
That's
working on for the
amazing.
past 3 years. Yeah.
So you've been working on the past 3 years. You're working hardcore. You were over there in the summer. When is it? Are you in
It'll
post?
be
Where are you
out.
at?
Yeah, we're like 80%. One of the singers just showed up just yesterday. which is crazy. So I have a call in to her. Hopefully I'll get to talk to her. But we're like 85, 90% done with shooting. Post's supposed to start in November. Got a pretty decent sized grant from the Irish Arts Council. Probably
Dope.
get another grant now from UCSD, and
Dope.
hopefully February we're done. I'm hoping. But we put a band together. We really, yeah, man. It's been it's been a pretty wild journey. I've never done anything like this before. I would say that's the best way to stay young, dude.
Right.
To do things that you've never done
New
before.
shit. Yeah,
New
hell
shit.
yeah.
Novelty, they call it. Just do
Yeah.
novelty. So yeah.
Dope. Well, I'm excited, to hear hear the full story. Since you've answered a lot of questions, it took a lot of your time. There's only 2 questions left.
Okay.
One is, what is your go-to hype song that you always go to when you need like some motivation?
There's a few, dude.
Give me 2 and the situation. Like, what do you need? Like, this is for when this is happening, and this is when I need this.
So if I'm feeling homesick, I'm either going for Christmas in New York or Listum Varna. One is by Christy Moore and the other is by the Pogues. That's if you can sit with me and drink a pint of Guinness and hear that song and you don't see a little tear appear somewhere, then you might want to take me to the hospital. Then there's like any of the songs by Doom from before the album that album came out. So like there was 3 12 inches by Bobito that was put out by Bobito on Fondle 'Em. One of them's Greenbacks. The other one is, it's not all caps. What the fuck is the name of it? I'm spacing on it. But there's 3 of those. There's 312. So after Doom passed, I don't know, man. That was one that really that hit really really hard. I mean, there's been a few that have hit hard, honestly, since
Right.
I feel like since 2020 we've all been, you know what I'm saying, we've had to confront the notion of our mortality in a very serious way, in a way that I wasn't familiar with prior to that. Like obviously, I mean, Dilla, Dust,
Right.
do you know what I mean?
Right.
But like
Does. Yeah.
this was like, it seemed like for a while it was like week to week to week to week, and as part of, I mean, the Doom one, I don't know what it was about Doom, but Doom was always one of them dudes that it was like you wanted to win because
Mm,
he just had the other narrative. He had the, you know what I mean? Like this Irish website asked me, like who's your favorite MC or whatever, and I said, I have to say Doom. And I was trying to think like, well, why is that? And
right.
then, and I think when I first was listening to hip hop, I feel like KRS-One's biography was emblematic in many respects of the music and where it was in that moment. As somebody raised in an orphanage, homeless, looked after by
Right.
somebody who ends up developing him as an MC, you know what I mean, to channels all his Jamaican energy. It just felt like his biography somehow was emblematic of the culture.
Right.
And then somehow the period of my involvement in like when I came to LA, I don't know if it was the very first show I went to, but it certainly was the first 1 or 2 shows I went to. I went to see De La Soul play at the Palladium, and like look at this lineup. It was De La was the headliners, Brand Nubian, KMD,
Wow. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and Leaders of the New School.
Wow.
Well, that's it. I mean, you know what I mean? You went to see hip hop. That
Yeah.
was it. That was it. You know what I mean? It was like, you know what I
Did
mean?
you see hip hop?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then somehow, oh, and then the best part was that when I was leaving, there was a shootout in the front of the Palladium, and it was between Booyah and Tone Loc's people had a shootout. So you can imagine what that looked like. That was hip hop.
Wow. That
That
was
was
hip
hip hop.
hop.
It was 1990, bro. Like September 1990, I think that was.
That was hip hop. That was LA
It
all
was
at one.
all in one
Right.
experience. You know what I mean? You couldn't have paid for it, but I mean,
No.
I paid for it. It was like $20. You know what I mean? Like, wow. I just
Right.
experience. But and somehow Doom, in everything that happened, like going through the whole era of being censored and losing the deal and losing his brother and going to Atlanta and going underground and then coming back with a, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? When those records when Bobito put out those records, dude, like, like that was the Fat Beats era, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it was just, those records were just unfadable. Like those are just, you know, in the same way as you think about Dilla, but there's something about Doom energy wise, you know what I'm saying? Like
And the
that.
time that he came out, like that
Yeah.
time, it was all those
And
factors.
you know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, that any of those songs will get, what I mean? That just gets me on my shit. I'm ready to go now. We're ready. All right, what do we got to do? I'm ready. You know what I mean? I try to do it that's the other thing, is like, to be able to do things. I mean, and that's always been the thing, is like, no matter what it is that you do, no matter what it is that you're given an opportunity to do, just do it as absolutely as toughest fucking level that you could possibly do it at. And that's Doom. You know what I mean? Like that's that shit. And so for me, it's a good reminder. Yeah, first freestyle fellowship, to whom it may concern. Do you know what I mean? Like that shit'll get me giddy always. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
I'm on nostalgia shit. But as far as I don't know, as far as some new shit, that's funny. Denise has a song that I fucking love, which is about Limerick, which is about my hometown, which is called 061. That's pretty.
I can't wait
That'll
to
get me
hear
fired
it.
up. Yeah, that'll get me fired up. Um, that's unquestionably get me fired up. But yeah, man, it's a weird thing too. Like, it's also the town that the Cranberries are from.
Mm,
So there's a bunch of Cranberries music, but for some reason, it doesn't reach me in the same way. I'll sing it, but
right.
it doesn't reach me in the same way. It's weird. It's weird how, like, yeah, it's weird how emotionally music, for whatever reason, will reach you in different ways or whatever. It's
Yeah.
not,
Different ways at different times of your life. Something that
yeah,
maybe wasn't even tapping you. Maybe it was like, oh, that's a nice memory. And then later it's just like, oh my
yeah.
God.
I
Like,
don't think
ooh.
I don't think Christmas in New York was that big of a deal for me when I lived at home. But then when I came here, I remember the first few Christmases wasn't able to go home, and I hear that shit, and there's something about, like, yeah. I mean, this immigrant stuff, right? I
Right.
mean, you know, I mean, I don't think people look at me and the first thing they think is immigrant, but that is the reality that I
Yeah.
live. You know what I mean? I do feel differently when I'm there. I do. You know what I mean? I hope I have the chance for all my friends to see me there. You know what I'm saying? That would be
Yeah.
dope, because
That
it's
would be
different.
really dope.
It's different.
Yeah.
You see a different frame. So,
And
but
everyone, Rocket loves it there. My best friend, her family adopted me when my mom passed away in college. And, they're half Irish. They're from Cork, and also from Butte, Montana, which they told me is really big. And it's like you're a celebrity if you're from Butte, Montana and you go to Ireland. So
Butte,
they told me,
Montana is I mean, Mike Davis, who was my professor, said it's the most Irish town he's been to outside of Ireland. I've never been there, but a writer I respect from my hometown, actually, Kevin Barry, we had a very long conversation about it, and yeah, I was shocked, because I
yeah,
think normally people think about Ireland. I mean, the Irish in America, they think about the obvious places, like the Bronx, Chicago, Boston,
Boston. Yeah.
even San Francisco. But Butte is a weird thing. That's kind of like Newfoundland, which is just like, you know, is so isolated as a place that they kind of kept to themselves, and then the culture kind of stayed in an interesting way, and it kind of, it's not Irish American, it's more Irish,
It's more
which is,
Irish.
a real difference. Yeah,
Right.
that's a real difference, because
And
Irish American, for me, to be honest with you, was something I moved away from, actually. I don't
mm,
even like saying it like that, but when I first came here, a lot of the Irish Americans that I met were very conservative, actually. Like, and
right.
I mean, we know this about ourselves too. Like, we're well capable of all the foul shit too. Do you know what I mean? For sure. I mean, there's a book. I remember Organic. I don't know. Did you ever meet Organic? Kevin Fitzgerald, African American filmmaker from here, but Irish in the family. And yeah, he showed me this book called How the Irish Became White. And it's the history of that. It's the history of how we switched our position on abolition, basically.
Wow.
Because
I'm gonna.
Frederick Douglass came to Ireland. Frederick Douglass escaped the United States and came to Ireland, and in the end, the Irish in America kind of sold him out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That I'm gonna take a note of that book. Thank you for those songs. They're gonna be added to the Word to Your Mama guest hype list song. I always put them to the front. It's 4 hours now. I think it's the first time. For sure, it's the first time the Pogues are on there, and I'm excited to put everyone that you put on there. I maybe the first time MF. No, I think there's a MF Doom song on there.
Let me give you the specific. Maybe I'll pick a specific MF Doom song so it's not like the whole all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, you can give that to me, and I met the Callahans when I was in college, and they took me in, and I went to Auntie Peg's house. She lived in Lakewood, rest her soul. And there was a big, it was like a knitted thing of Butte, Montana. And they were telling me how their family was there. And it's like Ireland, outside of Ireland. And during those times, they would make the money from mining and send money to Ireland. And so shout out to Patrick Callahan. That's my best friend's father. He's a supernatural bear. It's his grandfather by heart. And when he was able to travel, he'd go back and he'd wear his Butte, Montana shirt, free drinks, and just like celebrity status, like for those that know. And I thought it was fascinating. I would have never known that if I, didn't have their family to me, so.
Did you ever talk to them about the Brigada San Patricio?
I did. And because I knew about that because of a book that I had read, I think in college. So hell yeah. And he's married to a lot, the Supernatural Bird's grandma, she's Latina and Navajo. And I was like, yes, that makes sense.
And you know about the Navajos too? Yes. You know about the Navajos during the famine?
Yes.
Bringing money to Ireland? Come on, man.
That's what I'm saying. It was like all meant to be. And I was just like, wow, this is, yeah, it's amazing. So
yeah, it's very nice. They would be lovely for them to have the opportunity to see the monument there in Ireland that they built to say thank you, basically.
Right.
But that's what I mean. Those are the stories that define us. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Let's get fucking Howard Zinn on this shit. Let's that, dude.
Unite and shake the shit up. Have people get shook and stuff.
Come on, man.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
All these triumphalist narratives. These, you know what I mean? It's just fucking idiocy, man. What are you triumphalist about? Look around you. Look how much hunger, poverty. Look at the fucking healthcare system. Look at the educational system. Right. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? This is a joke. This is a joke. This whole notion, this whole American exceptionalism. It's exceptionalism for what?
For what?
How whack it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man.
Right.
Fucking program. But anyways, sure.
Final question before I let you go. What will be your legacy, B?
Oh. Yeah, I'm not very good at thinking about that type of shit. Part of the gift, if it is that, for me, is to stay as absolutely grounded in the present as I possibly can. And so, and I've lost, I don't know if I've lost friends, but I've definitely lost relationships over this shit. But so I'm terrible at what's your 5-year plan? It's just like, to get to next week, you know what I mean?
Tomorrow? Get to tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah. So the legacy, Jesus, I don't know. What I would say is I think what sustains me is that somehow the way you do this is as important as some kind of goal. You know what I mean? That, there is a way to walk this path. There is a way. These are incredibly treacherous and difficult places in many respects that we walk. You know, the politics of representation have never been more fraught with difficulty. The complications around talking across race, gender, you know what I'm saying, have never been quite as complicated as they are in this moment. But that's why it's important to be steadfast, be careful, double down. You know what I mean? Not double down in the sense of like, you know, backing yourself up when you're wrong.
Right. Totally.
Um, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think, which is often how people say double down, but double down in the sense of like, yeah, oh, like I know this is important now. And as difficult as it is, and as thin as the work might seem sometimes, or the money might seem sometimes, you know what I'm saying? This is important to do this. So, you know, when I read a student saying something like that, or when I have a colleague reach out to me and tell me, you've always been a North Star for us, that kind of shit, like that's more than plenty. That sustains me.
Right.
Whether that'll last after, who knows? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Like, have I kept this whole archive together carefully enough to where it lasts and where my daughter will be able to take care of it? I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
I think so.
But I mean, it's, yeah. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to even think about it for a second. So,
well, muchísimas gracias. I've taken way more of the time that you allotted, so I really appreciate it. Let people know where they can find you, what's coming up, whatever you want them to know.
Easiest way to find always is mochila.com. Just hit the contact or info or whatever, any of those connects in there, you can find us. Or Mochila on Mochill, gringo spelling, on the gram, or Be Pleasel, which is Be Please, Please, and an L on the end. You can find me on the gram, and just be out here, dude. It's all good. Happy to be seeing you.
Same. And all this will be in the show notes. I'm going to have links to all his shit, everything we talked about. I'm definitely going to need to ask you for that book. The white, which was
How the Irish Became White.
Yes, like I need that. I want to get that
for native. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to get all that stuff and stuff like that. So yeah, muchísimas gracias. And we really, honestly, we talked about almost 2 hours. We could have talked 5 hours. We didn't even touch upon so many things. So, if you're down at another day, would love to have you on and just talk about
whatever.
Super other things. So muchísimas gracias.
Please, yes, likewise. And please give a hug to the two dudes at the crib for me.
I will. Thank you.